Hello. Today we're going to review some basics of collecting evidence, and I hope you'll find it very helpful. And please keep in mind that these are just some guidelines that have helped me and that I have learned have been helpful to some other people as well with whom I've discussed this matter, and I hope it's helpful to you. But this is a very serious topic requiring very serious thought before doing anything on the matter. And one of the things that needs to be done in every case is to check the rules of evidence for your particular jurisdiction, as based on those rules of evidence, certain things such as audio, for example, may or may not be admissible, and there may be certain guidelines in order to make them admissible. So you'd want to know those things ideally in advance so that your efforts to gather evidence are not wasted, but could be used in a court of law should it come to that. And first and foremost, as I believe I've also heard Dr. McIntyre say, it is just not worth it to risk your safety for the sake of gathering evidence. As I like to think of, if you are around to live to fight for another day, then that's much more important. And even better, if there's nothing left to fight another day, that's better still. If the targeting just for some reason stops, then you're still even better off. Those things are much more important to actually get the targeting to stop, and whether the targeting does or doesn't completely stop, to be able to live to see another day than it is to just insist that any risk is worthwhile to get evidence against the perpetrators. So keeping that in mind, we'll go over some basic tips that might help as far as tools and so forth that could be used. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Photo, video, and audio files can be stored on a recordable CD. Ideally, the CD should be non-rewritable with engraved serial numbers. This helps to meet the first criterion for storing digital files for evidence. Images must be recorded in an unalterable, archival form soon after the records are created. This quote is from Ensure Admissibility of Digital Images by Richard Kamen and Herbert Blitzer. The guidelines also apply well to other digital files. The file should include information regarding their creation. Remember to keep the original files unaltered. If clarity needs to be increased, this can be done on a copy with notation of the adjustment. The article also suggests that you record an index of disk contents along with the serial numbers of the corresponding disk. See www.iowa.ai.org/ensure_admissibility_digital_images.html. I suggest that you also cross-index the disk and file contents. For example, under suspect vehicles, both within organized stalking and within electronic harassment, when both are applicable. It could also be helpful to keep several copies of key evidence files, each set in a different location. It could also be helpful to store multiple formats. For example, paper copies of documents plus scanned copies. Evidence that points to any of who, what, where, when, why, or how can be helpful. Remember to be particularly cautious about the first, that is, who. We have discussed in some previous videos some reasons to be particularly cautious about identifying perpetrators. In Freedom of Mind 3, Overcoming Fear, the definition of false flag operations arose. False flag operations are those made to appear as though they are being carried out by someone other than the true perpetrating entity. In Freedom of Mind 6, How to Stop Targeting, there was reference to the possibility that identifying certain perpetrators, primarily individuals, could prolong targeting or prevent a perpetrator from testifying. Possibly for analogous reasons, I have come across some law firms that as a policy do not take cases against individual professionals, while they do take cases against the entities that employ the professionals. Identifying certain groups of people could also prolong targeting and prevent perpetrators or other witnesses from testifying. Further, according to en.wikipedia.org/project_MKUltra, treatments resulted in victims thinking their interrogators were their parents. When it comes to gathering evidence of targeting, capturing photo, video, and audio files of what the perpetrators are doing and when they are doing it is particularly helpful. When keeping record of email for evidence, be sure to include the full headers. For information on how to see the full header data, search Google for "how to show full headers" in the name of the service provider you are using for email. In addition to the to, from, and subject fields, full headers include status, XELNK, AV, and XELNK, SYS fields, plus a date field that pinpoints the time of the email to the second, and a message ID field. This information can lead to the exact origin of the email. For capturing additional activity and information that is viewable on your computer, screen capture programs such as HyperCam are helpful. For capturing in-person activity such as noisy surveillance, an easily portable digital camera with video and audio recording capacity can be helpful. Noisy surveillance is meant for the target to observe, as one of its goals is intimidation. It is helpful to show a pattern. For example, the same perpetrator lurking outside your residence early and late in the day and on subsequent days or nights. To help show this pattern, in addition to capturing images that are close enough to show relevant detail, such as anything significant that the perpetrators are doing, for example hand signaling or operating devices, be sure to capture images that are wide enough to show clothing, natural lighting, and location relative to a stationary point, along with any accompanying vehicle. Changes in A. Clothing worn by the perpetrators, B. Natural lighting, C. Relative location, and D. Any accompanying vehicle all help to show the passage of time. Announcing the time and date within video and audio files, and including an image of the time and date, for example as displayed on a mobile phone, within photos is also helpful, as these are less readily altered later than external notations of time and date. A leather-bound, handwritten journal is more likely to be accepted as evidence than a loose-leaf binder. Here again, a consideration is decreased ease of after-the-fact tampering by anyone. The more difficult you make it for anyone to tamper with your evidence, the less likely that problem is to occur. Journals are particularly worthwhile for documenting effects of being targeted that cannot readily be seen or heard. Journals can document what is perceived by the remaining senses, plus inner experiences. For capturing sound-based evidence, such as noise campaigns or voiced threats, a portable digital audio recorder could be utilized. For phones, including voicemail that otherwise would only be temporarily stored, there are two-way memo recorders. The evidence-gathering tools reviewed in this presentation are readily available to most people viewing this. These tools may be used to gather evidence that can be physically seen or heard. Additional categories of evidence-gathering tools exist. There are tools for gathering evidence when you are not present, either in time or space. For example, motion-activated surveillance equipment. There are also specialized tools that may require particular skill or practice to gain, and not lose, advantage over more user-friendly tools. An example is a handheld document scanner. And there are tools to gather evidence of what is perceived by other senses. For example, medical equipment such as an EEG or brainwave interface. This photo depicts a musical brainwave performance. There are yet more tools to gather evidence of high-tech targeting. For example, radiation measuring devices. Some are carried on keychains. Now let's hear from Dr. McIntyre.
I'm Dr. Charles McIntyre, and I want to welcome you once again to our series, and thank you for watching and listening to what I have to say. Our focus today, as my daughter has said, will be on collecting evidence, evaluating evidence, and utilizing it. I think perhaps one of the most difficult things about being targeted is being able to convince people that you are targeted. and at the same time, not be suspicious of everything that's going on around you, of everyone around you. You know, if you begin to share with your family, your friends, people you work with, your supervisors, your acquaintances, then a lot of times they begin to ignore you. They don't believe you, and they begin sometimes not to even trust you, until eventually you become isolated and you're by yourself. So one of the things my daughter is going to do today is to help you how to deal with that and help you to understand how to collect valid evidence to use and where to use it. Now, when you collect evidence, when do you want to present it to your family? Well, in the meantime, if you haven't already burned the bridges with your family and friends and acquaintances, then it's better if you don't talk to them about your targeting, because if they haven't been there, they really won't understand it. So when is the best time to present the evidence to them and to talk to them? It's after you have collected sufficient amount of evidence that you can show them the patterns that are taking place and what's happening to you and how you're being targeted. But you have to have enough evidence to be able to show them clearly the patterns. Because you have to remember that even though you're being targeted with your friends and family and with your acquaintances, you're still very vulnerable. And you're scared. And you're alone from everything that's going on with you. So what can you do to deal with these things? Well, the first thing is something that I have mentioned before, and that's to engage in relaxation exercises. You take 3 deep breaths in your mouth and out your mouth slowly. A 4th one in your mouth, hold it for a few seconds and slowly release it through your nose. Then sitting quietly, get a picture of your feet on the TV screen in your mind until you can feel that your feet are heavy and that you can feel them tingle. And then you can feel that same experience all the way up your legs, your torso, your body, all the way up to your face. And then you want to put yourself on the TV screen in your mind in the most beautiful place on earth until you're relaxed, until you're there and you're calm. The next, you want to be able to provide and get support. And see if you can find a support group to join, such as the one my daughter is going to be telling you about. The next thing you want to do is get a copy of The Power of Positive Thinking. As old as the book is by Norman Vincent Peale, it's as relevant today as it was when it was written under inspiration in 1949. And then the next thing you want to do is take your evidence that you have collected and put it on YouTube. There will be people there who will help to validate it. There will be people there like you who are being targeted. And pretty soon you will have quite a support group. And this is one of the ways that you want to deal with the targeting, the fear, the anguish, and the vulnerability that you have. In conclusion today, I want to point out a couple of the most important things to remember. Number one is to remain calm when you're researching or searching for evidence. And number two, be cautious. Don't put yourself at risk when you're searching for evidence. Thank you.